Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's August 30th, 2018. I'm out here by the asparagus plantings, which are right around, go in a semicircular fashion around one of the bioremediation canals. So it goes all the way around. Recently I posted a video demonstrating how we're weeding the area, taking the clumps of sod, clumps of the compost and wood chip mulch material, along with the tall weeds. We're 6 feet tall. Put them in the back of Pepe, brought them over and use them as organic material to help seal Pond 5. And after getting all of the weed material out from around each one of the asparagus plants, I went ahead and used Bumblebee, the mini excavator, and scraped back the margins around where the asparagus plants were to try and, let's say, reduce the likelihood or the advancement of some of the encroaching weeds, the creeping Charlie, the quack grass, and various other weeds as well, and grasses. So what I wanted to do was pull back the material. Now ideally I'd be putting down paper products, cardboard, and doing sheet mulching right up against the compost. I also took I think 10 to 12 yards of compost, and you can see I rebuilt the bed for the asparagus plants. So next, I just received another load of wood chips. It's probably several days old, as he's been building it in his truck, his covered truck that he hauls the wood chips in. So it's a little bit moldy at this point, but it's in good condition because some real good fresh stuff there as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Optimus Prime, the front end loader, and bring it over and deposit it right up next to the compost. There will be some wood chips that end up on the surface of it, but as I mentioned before, as the berries mature into seeds that are on the asparagus plants, I'll lay those down on top of the compost. May put a little more compost on it, but I'll be putting wood chips on top of that as well. But for today, my main goal is creating a retaining wall of wood chips that help to keep the compost from eroding and working its way down. On the back side of the compost, from the other side, from what you can see behind me now, there is a 4x8 by 16 rumble wall blocks, like the handicap access raised beds that we have around here. So those blocks are going to keep the compost from working their way into the bioremediation canal. But this side, the compost is just built up. And so as it rains and the winds come, it's uncovered compost at this point. We're going to lose some of the nutrients to the air, to the atmosphere. We're going to have some of it erode down the bank towards us, where I'm standing right now. So therefore, ideally putting cardboard and paper products down as a sheet mulch layer, and then putting the wood chips on top of it. But I'm not going to use the paper products today, the cardboard. I'm going to use the wood chips that we've got, create a retaining wall to try and keep as much of it there, so I'm at least blocking. So the compost is blocked on one side by the block wall. It's going to be blocked on the other side by a wood chip wall that I'm going to create, and the surface of it will be covered as well. As soon as these berries mature a little bit more so that the seeds are viable, we'll lay those plants down so that can be broken down, and the seeds potentially will germinate next spring, and all of that material will be covered by wood chips. So I'm going to fire up GoPro and fire up Optimus Prime and get these wood chips laid out. Hopefully I can get it all the way around to the perimeter. Here we go. Okay, I'm back. Just got done putting all of the loads of the wood chips and leafy material that came with the wood chips. It's been sitting in the truck, most of it for a couple of days, probably the better part of a week, and starting its decomposition. You can see lots of fungi started in the pile. And I broke it up and brought it all the way around the perimeter of the compost that I put over the asparagus plants that are all the way around out here. And so that's the first part of it. That's getting a retaining wall of wood chips that will reduce the amount of erosion of the compost itself. Now, as I've mentioned in previous videos, one of my ultimate goals is to always have the soil completely covered. Now, right now I'll be using wood chips on here. But ideally, what I'd like to have here ultimately is a very low perennial ground cover, like white clover, or a mixture of a couple of different ground covers all along that will allow the asparagus to be a complementary plant so that it can keep shooting up and providing us with asparagus during the spring months, and still have a nitrogen fixer as well as other herbs, very ground cover, low level herbs that are easy to manage, that occupy the entire surface of the compost there, simultaneously allowing the asparagus to shoot up in the springtime and to produce the berries and seed in the fall as well. But I don't have the means of doing that just yet, and we're not done with wood chips yet. So I put the loads, the bucket loads, around the perimeter. Then I used my little fork there to smooth out the top surface. I haven't covered the compost yet. That's where the asparagus plants will be laid down once the berries mature and the seeds are ready to be laid down on the compost. Then I'll put wood chips on there. But again, a perennial ground cover. Ground covers are perennial ground covers are the way of the future, and cover crops. Green manure, but I prefer to think of cover crops, permanent growing growth. Either we're growing our vegetables or produce in the beds, or we've got it covered the rest of the season with continuous growing beneficial plants that help to build soil as well. So the next load that I get, if I get enough loads over the next few weeks, I'd like to put one more retaining wedge. So this is, I'm calling a retaining wall. It's probably 18 inches tall. It's a couple of feet wide. The next one would be a wedge going away from it and gradually tapered off, because that's what will happen to this wall. It'll be a wedge going right down, and there will be erosion of the compost ultimately. Now there will be some redistribution of the compost going into the wood chips as it settles, and the height of it will drop down as well. By next spring it'll be at least 4 inches lower, and the wood chips will be at least 6 or 8 inches lower as well. So those are all things that I want to count for in doing this. I also need some more wood chips to work on the pergola over there, which I've got 2 grape plants planted there, and that's not the ideal situation, as I've talked about in previous videos. As far, I'll be using grape trellises in the future, but I haven't gotten those established yet. But that's it for today's video. I hope it may have inspired you, informed you a bit, giving you some ideas. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. I really appreciate it. Appreciate a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. That helps us out. And hit that bell icon if you want to be notified when we post more videos. And certainly, folks, have a super fantastic day. Bye-bye now.